Everything you thought you knew about Blood of My Blood is about to change. Season 2 isn't just a continuation, it's a transformation. The family we thought we understood is standing on the edge of something darker, deeper, and far more dangerous. Lies will surface, bonds will break, and every truth will demand a price. Welcome back to SugarBee, where stories meet secrets, and today, we're diving deep into how Blood of My Blood Season 2 is set to transform everything. From shocking alliances to emotional unravelings, here's what to expect when the new season begins. Season 1 of Blood of My Blood wasn't just a drama, it was a dissection of a family built on loyalty, love, and lies. At its heart lay a powerful truth. Sometimes, the greatest enemies aren't strangers at all, but the people we call family. The story introduced us to a dynasty that appeared untouchable from the outside, wealthy, respected, and deeply rooted in legacy. But beneath the surface, that perfect image was held together by fragile threads of secrecy and sacrifice. The eldest siblings stood as the pillar of that illusion. They bore the weight of leadership like a curse passed down through generations. Every decision they made, every secret they kept, was an attempt to preserve the family name, to protect an empire built on foundations no one dared to question. Their calm strength hit a breaking point. Behind closed doors, the sleepless nights and heavy silences revealed a truth they could never speak aloud. The family was already falling apart, and they were the only ones still pretending at WASN, single quotes, T. Meanwhile, the younger siblings were each fighting their own silent wars. 1. The dreamer longed to escape the suffocating traditions that defined their bloodline. They wanted freedom, a life carved by their own choices rather than the ghosts of their ancestors. Yet every step toward independence pulled them deeper into guilt, torn between personal happiness and the fear of betraying those they loved. Then came the rebel, fiery, restless, and unafraid to question authority. Where others bowed, they stood tall. Where silence was expected, they spoke. Their defiance was both a strength and a danger, challenging the family's code of silence and threatening to expose what everyone else worked so hard to bury. But rebellion, in a family built on lies, comes with consequences. Every act of defiance rippled through the household like thunder, shaking the fragile balance that kept everything from collapsing. By the final moments of Season 1, the cracks in this family's perfect facade had split wide open. A long-hidden betrayal came to light, one that didn't just change how the family saw each other, but how they saw themselves. Loyalties shifted, trust disintegrated, love turned to resentment, and what was once a house united by legacy became a battlefield haunted by its own history. The once grand estate, filled with laughter and legacy, now echoed with silence and suspicion. Every portrait on the wall, every piece of ancestral pride, served as a reminder of how far they had fallen. Season 1 ended not with closure, but with a warning. The truth always finds a way to surface, and that's exactly where Season 2 begins. In the aftermath of ruin, the empire is crumbling. The lies that once protected them are now turning into weapons, and the family, once bound by blood, must face the question that will define everything moving forward. When blood becomes poison, can love still save what's left? Season 2 of Blood of My Blood doesn't just continue the story, it transforms it. The tone shifts like the weather before a storm. Where Season 1 offered moments of warmth, beauty, and fragile hope, the new season feels colder, heavier, and charged with danger. The illusion of safety that once surrounded the family is gone. Every choice now carries weight, and every moment feels like it could spiral into disaster. From the very first frame, viewers can feel the change. The once beautiful landscapes, lush fields, grand estates, and candlelit halls now seem lifeless and hollow. The fog that rolls across the land feels thicker, as though the world itself is mourning what's been lost. Even the air in these spaces feels tense, heavy with unspoken truths. It's as if the world of Blood of My Blood has aged overnight, carrying the bruises of every betrayal that came before. The visual storytelling mirrors this transformation. The cinematography leans into shadow and stillness. Light no longer feels safe, it exposes more than it comforts. Every frame seems to whisper that something terrible is just out of sight. Long pauses, dimly lit corridors, and silent glances between characters speak louder than words. The music too has changed. Deeper strings, slower tempos, haunting echoes that linger long after a scene fades. This isn't just a new season, it's a new world. But the darkness isn't just visual, it's emotional. The characters we thought we knew are unraveling before our eyes. The eldest sibling, once a steady hand in chaos, begins to show cracks. Their calm confidence turns brittle. Every decision feels heavier, every secret harder to protect. The guilt of past actions begins to consume them, And what was once leadership starts to look like loneliness. The dreamer who sought freedom now feels the crushing cost of it. Choices made in pursuit of happiness return like ghosts, reminding them that freedom in this world always demands sacrifice. And the rebel, who once thrived on confrontation, begins to understand the true price of defiance. The fire that once made them fearless now burns dangerously close to power. Self-destruction. Power. The one constant this family has always relied on is slipping through their fingers. The alliances that once held them together are eroding. Enemies no longer stand outside the gates. They exist within their own bloodline. Trust is gone. Control is an illusion. This darker shift defines Blood of My Blood Season 2. It's not about victory anymore, it's about endurance. The world no longer rewards loyalty or love, it punishes them. Every character must now face the consequences of their past and decide what they're willing to lose to survive what's coming next. Because in this world, survival isn't guaranteed and truth can be the most dangerous weapon of all. Every dynasty eventually faces outsiders, people who weren't there at the beginning, but arrived just in time to change everything. Blood of My Blood Season 2 brings that reckoning with the introduction of new faces, each one carrying secrets sharp enough to wound the strongest of hearts. The first of these is the stranger, a quiet, watchful figure whose past is tangled with the family's darkest secrets. They arrive without warning, appearing at the edge of a stormy night, claiming to know truths, long-buried truths that could rewrite the family's entire history. They speak of betrayals hidden in the archives, of names erased from ledgers, and of promises made in blood. Their presence alone is enough to shatter the fragile peace the siblings have built since the chaos of Season 1. This outsider doesn't just bring tension, they bring revelation. The eldest sibling, once certain of their lineage and purpose, begins to question everything. Late-night confrontations fill the air with accusations and dread. Could it be that the legacy they fought so hard to protect was founded on a lie? That question becomes the heartbeat of Season 2's new story arc. Then comes the politician, a charismatic ally turned manipulator. They enter through charm and diplomacy, but their motives are anything but pure. Behind every smile lies calculation. They whisper promises of unity, of power, of restoring the family name, but in reality, they're building a web of control. By mid-season, their schemes have already set sibling against sibling, creating fractures too deep to mend. But darkness doesn't arrive alone. Amid the chaos, there are new faces offering something rare. Light, a healer, kind but haunted, becomes an unexpected confidant to the dreamer of the family. Their presence brings warmth and the possibility of forgiveness, though their own scars suggest danger still lurks close. A child, born of secrecy, becomes a living symbol of what the family has lost: innocence, hope, and truth. Each of these characters brings a new kind of energy, unpredictable, necessary, and deeply human. Season 2 thrives on these contrasts: loyalty and betrayal, love and destruction, rebirth and ruin. Every new arrival feels like a test, pushing the old world to its limits and daring it to evolve. And perhaps the most dangerous question of all arises: who among them is the real enemy? The threat outside the family, or the poison still brewing within? As the world of Blood of My Blood grows darker and more complex, these new faces don't just add drama, they change the rules of survival. By the time the final episodes roll in, it won't be about who you love or who you fear. It will be about who you believe, because, in this family, trust itself has become the deadliest weapon of all. Every empire eventually crumbles, not from an outside invasion, but from the exhaustion of the one who held it together for too long. In Blood of My Blood, Season 2, that empire is the family, and its cornerstone, the eldest sibling, is beginning to crack. Once the figure everyone turned to for strength, guidance, and order, the eldest now carries the kind of fatigue that seeps into the soul. The years of covering for mistakes, mending broken relationships, and keeping the truth buried have hollowed them out. What was once pride in leadership has turned into quiet resentment. The family they fought to protect no longer feels like a blessing. It feels like a prison built from duty and expectation. Season 2 explores this breaking point with unflinching honesty. In early episodes, we see flashes of the person they used to be: calm, decisive, unyielding. But those moments fade fast. The camera lingers on their silence, on the trembling hand that can no longer hold the pen steady when signing the family documents, on the late-night walks through the decaying halls where ghosts of their choices whisper back. The once glorious estate now mirrors their mental state: dark corners, locked doors, and echoes of what was lost. Their greatest struggle isn't with the family, it's with themselves. For the first time, they question whether everything they sacrificed was worth it. Every deal made in shadows, every truth withheld for the greater good, every sibling they pushed away, it all returns with haunting clarity. And at the center of it all lies the question they've never dared to ask. What if protecting the family means destroying who I am? As the season progresses, this internal war spills into the open. The younger siblings, now emboldened and restless, begin to see the cracks in their leader's armor. Arguments turn into explosions. Old wounds are reopened. The eldest's authority, once unshakable, starts to unravel as their emotions take over. They make mistakes, trust the wrong people, and finally, for the first time, let their pain show. But in that vulnerability lies something powerful: truth. The audience begins to see not just the leader, but the human behind the title. The one who never asked for this throne, who was thrust into responsibility too early, and who has paid for it with every piece of themselves. By mid-season, the eldest sibling reaches their emotional threshold, a moment of raw confrontation that becomes one of the series' most powerful scenes. The facade breaks, the mask falls, and in that silence, surrounded by the ruins of everything they tried to preserve, they finally whisper the words they've kept buried for years. I can't do this anymore. Every empire eventually faces rebellion, not from the outside, but from the children born inside its walls. Blood of My Blood Season 2 captures this rebellion with breathtaking intensity. As the older generation buckles under guilt and consequence, the younger ones step into the fire, not to inherit the crown, but to destroy the throne that's been choking them since birth. These aren't the timid heirs of yesterday. They're bold, ruthless, and unapologetically self-driven. The quiet submission we saw in Season 1 has vanished. In its place stands a generation ready to tear down the system their parents built. A system of silence, manipulation, and sacrifice disguised as loyalty. For one of the younger siblings, this rise begins with identity. They've spent their life buried beneath expectations, told who to be, how to act, what legacy to uphold. But Season 2 gives them voice and power. Their arc is deeply personal, a journey of self-definition in a world that refuses to see them as anything but an heir. They begin to break the mold, defying the rituals and beliefs that have defined their family for centuries. And in doing so, they ignite a quiet revolution of individuality, one that others quickly rally behind. Then there's rebellion embodied by the family's most unpredictable member. This character doesn't just want freedom, they crave chaos. Where the elders built walls, they bring fire. They challenge decisions in public, expose lies in front of outsiders, and refuse to participate in the games of power and diplomacy that once held the family together. Every scene with them pulses with energy, reckless, daring, and defiant. But behind that defiance lies a deep wound, the pain of never being heard. And finally, there's vengeance, the raw, unfiltered rage of those who have suffered the most from the sins of the past. These are the ones who know the family's darkest truths, who grew up in the shadow of broken promises and whispered scandals. Their mission is clear: make the past pay. Whether through exposure, blackmail, or bloodshed, they're determined to make the elders answer for everything they've buried. Together, these younger characters don't just create tension, they redefine the story. The old rules no longer apply. Loyalty means nothing without truth, and power means nothing without justice. The family's once unshakable hierarchy begins to crumble, not because of outside enemies, but because the children refuse to obey. By mid-season, the shift is undeniable. The dinner table, once a place of order and quiet dominance, becomes a battleground of voices, accusations, and demands. Every exchange feels like a duel. Every look carries history. And for the first time, the elders realize they're not in control anymore. Blood of My Blood Season 2 transforms the generational divide into its most explosive storyline, yet a war between preservation and progress. Between those who built the legacy and those brave enough to tear it apart. Because sometimes, to truly move forward, the old blood must burn. Every dynasty hides something, a lie so powerful it becomes the foundation of everything that follows. In Blood of My Blood Season 2, that lie finally comes undone. What begins as a quiet search for truth explodes into a revelation that changes not only how we see the family but how the family sees itself. It starts innocently, a misplaced letter, an old diary, a document hidden deep within the walls of the ancestral estate. What was supposed to be forgotten suddenly breathes again. The words on the page are cryptic at first, but their meaning sharpens with each clue. And soon, the family realizes that their past, the very story they've been telling themselves for generations, was rewritten long ago to protect the guilty and bury the innocent. The revelation unfolds with surgical precision. Each episode peels back a layer of deception, exposing not just one secret but a web of them, connecting affairs, betrayals, and crimes that span decades. The audience, much like the characters, begins to question everything they thought was true. Who really founded the family's fortune? Who betrayed whom? And most chilling of all, who died to keep the truth hidden? For the eldest sibling, this truth is the breaking point. They discover that every sacrifice they made, every act of loyalty, every sleepless night spent defending the family's name was built on lies. The people they protected weren't victims. They were the architects of the very pain that haunts them. This realization shatters their sense of purpose, leaving them lost between rage and despair. The youngest, however, faces a different truth. Their pursuit of freedom, their rebellion and defiance was never as pure as they believed. The secrets reveal that they, too, are tied to the same corruption they despise. Their freedom now feels hollow, their independence poisoned by bloodlines they can't escape. For them, isolation becomes the price of knowing too much, and as these revelations ripple through the family, old alliances crumble. Trust already fragile is obliterated. The siblings turn on one another, accusations flying like daggers. Words once spoken in love are now laced with venom. What was once us against the world becomes each for themselves. The true brilliance of Season 2 lies in how it handles these revelations. It's not just about shock, it's about consequence. The truth doesn't cleanse, it corrodes. Every revelation carries weight, destroying reputations, unraveling relationships, and forcing impossible choices. By the season's midpoint, the family's legacy lies in ruins. The estate, once a symbol of pride, becomes a mausoleum of guilt. The audience can feel it, the sense that something irreversible has happened. Every story reaches a breaking point, the moment when all the lies, secrets, and betrayals can no longer coexist. Blood of My Blood Season 2 hits that moment with brutal precision. The slow unraveling that began in whispers now roars into an inferno. Chaos isn't just a backdrop anymore, it's the main character. The family that once held everything together through appearances, status, and shared pain finally shatters. The walls of their grand estate no longer echo with arguments or quiet plotting, they tremble with fury, grief, and truth. Every simmering resentment ignites. Every alliance built on convenience collapses. What began as a war of words turns into an emotional and literal battle for survival. The turning point comes with a single death, shocking, tragic, and inevitable. It's not just the loss of a character, it's the collapse of everything they represented. Their death exposes the fragility of every bond left in this family. It forces the survivors to look in the mirror and see the damage they've done to themselves, to one another, and to the legacy they were trying to protect. The aftermath is devastating. Some turn inward, retreating into guilt and denial. Others lash out, desperate to assign blame where it hurts most. The family dinner table becomes a battlefield of silence and accusation, and as grief takes hold, it becomes clear there's no path back to what they once were. Outside the family's crumbling walls, the world isn't kind either. Enemies sense weakness. Former allies circle like vultures, waiting to claim what remains of the empire. Politics, money, and manipulation intertwine, turning the ruins of a family tragedy into an opportunity for power. The fire that began in their hearts now spreads outward, threatening to consume everything they've ever built. Yet amid the devastation, the season does something remarkable. It finds beauty in the ashes. As the flames of betrayal burn away the old, there's a haunting calm that follows. The surviving members begin to see fragments of truth, not as weapons, but as a form of liberation. For the first time, they aren't bound by illusion. They're raw, real, and painfully human. The eldest sibling, stripped of power and pride, finally stops fighting the inevitable and faces the truth, not as a leader, but as a person. The youngest, hardened by loss, learns that freedom without love is emptiness. And together, in the final quiet moments of the season, they stand before what's left of their home, scorched, broken, and eerily peaceful. When the final episode of Blood of My Blood Season 2 fades to black, it doesn't feel like an ending, it feels like an awakening. The story we began with, a fractured family clinging to loyalty and lies, has evolved into something much bigger, darker, and far more dangerous. The people we once knew are gone. What's left are survivors, scarred, unrecognizable, and shaped by fire. The family that once fought to protect its secrets now stands in the wreckage of truth. The walls that hid their sins have crumbled, exposing everything, every betrayal, every whispered promise, every false smile. And yet, against all odds, they endure. The camera lingers on their faces, older, colder, but not defeated. Survival has become their only language. The tone of the finale is haunting. There's no triumphant music, no clean resolution. Instead, silence, heavy and intimate. The air is thick with grief and anticipation. The estate stands in ruins, half lit by candlelight, the scent of smoke still lingering from the fire that consumed it. Amid the destruction, there's an eerie calm, as if the storm has passed but the sea beneath still churns. This is where Blood of My Blood reinvents itself. The show stops being about the past and turns toward the future. A power shift is taking place, slow but undeniable. The younger generation, once dismissed as reckless or naive, now holds the keys to what remains of the family's legacy. Their choices, not the elders, will shape what comes next. But they're not united, not yet. Ambition brews quietly in every look, every pause, every unspoken word. The game of loyalty and betrayal hasn't ended, it's simply evolved. And then comes the whisper, the final line that seals the season's legacy. It's not shouted or cried. It's delivered in the dark, with a voice barely audible, but full of meaning. Blood remembers. Those two words carry everything. The pain of the past, the ghosts of the dead, and the promise of revenge. It's both a warning and a prophecy. Whatever comes next, it won't be forgiveness. It will be reckoning. The final moments are cinematic perfection. The camera pans across the ruined halls, through the smoke and candlelight, catching glimpses of the survivors as they part ways, each one stepping into their own uncertain future. The world feels bigger now, the stakes higher. There's a sense that this family's story is far from over. It's only just begun to bleed. Season 2 of Blood of My Blood isn't just a continuation, it's a transformation. It shows us what happens when truth burns through every layer of deception, when love becomes a weapon, and when legacy demands a price no one is willing to pay. If Season 1 made us care, Season 2 makes us choose sides. You're watching SugarBee, where stories breathe, secrets burn, and the truth always finds its way to the surface.